Everyone will be starting shortly. We're just waiting for a few members to join us. Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Before I continue, can everyone hear us? Okay, hear me okay? And you can see the room? Great. Okay. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is East Bay Community Energy Board of Directors Special Board Meeting Retreat on local programs. The date is Monday, April 24th, 2023 at 12 p.m. There are members in person at the Lake Merritt Room at Cal State East Bay Oakland Center. And then we have multiple members present virtual at the locations listed on the agenda. Members of the public can access this meeting via Zoom. It is posted on our agenda and our website. Can we please start with the welcome and roll call? I did welcome with roll call.
Great, thank you. Albany. Albany. Burkett.
Here.
Dublin.
Here.
Emeryville.
Here.
Fremont. Fremont. Haywood.
Here.
Livermore. Newark. Newark. Oakland. Piedmont.
Present.
San Leandro. Stockton.
Present.
Tracy.
Here.
Union City.
Here.
Community Advisory Committee.
Present.
Pleasanton.
Present.
Alameda County.
Present.
We have 4.
Thank you, Adrian. And if you can all, those that are present or at home, if you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will now move on to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the community to speak on items under the purview of EBCE, but not on today's. Let me make sure that's right. You know what, I will want to open public comment after staff presentation, so I'll take public comment on items not on the agenda. So is there any members of the public that would like to speak? I don't see anyone in the audience, but if we have anyone virtual.
Yes, we have one member of the public with their hand raised.
Okay,
Audrey Ichinose, you're recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Audrey Ichinose, East Bay Clean Power Alliance. I live in South Berkeley. And I'm sorry, I can't, my time is really limited. So I do want to thank you very much for this retreat on local development or local programs, as you describe it. It's such an intrinsic part of EBCE's mission. These informational meetings are really important given the turnover in jurisdictional oversight. The summary list of programs is truly impressive, and all the more so since it seems to be the work of such a small staff. If I may, I'd like to suggest another topic for a further board retreat. I think it would be very useful if staff could give us a demo of the Salesforce software. EBCE seems to use it mainly to track program enrollment. But it would help everyone, I think, to see how the participant information is gathered, recorded in the defined subcategories, and finally aggregated. I think it could, Salesforce software could also be useful if it could accommodate of EBCE's project partners. And if the software can also accommodate a similar tracking of CNI customers, this kind of data would facilitate our overview of local development activity, especially with respect to jobs and the local economy. Again, thank you very much for this presentation.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any more public comments?
There is no further public comment.
Okay, thank you. We're now going to move on to agenda item number 4, local programs update. And JP, will you start us off?
Yeah, well, thank you, Chair Marquez. So we're going to be talking today about the local programs that EBCE has been focused on. Next slide, please, Adrian. We've got a packed agenda, so we'll be moving through these slides and trying not to overwhelm. I will ask that we keep questions to the end. Otherwise, I fear we will not make it through the materials that we have. So would ask members to take notes, and we can try to consolidate some of the questions. I imagine we'll have those questions, and we'll be happy to discuss them. We're trying to keep our presentation to about an hour and a half, so we have about a half an hour, 25 minutes or so to discuss. So that is what we're going to try to do. So we're now 9 members of the local programs team. We'll be doing a bit of a round robin today, so that folks get a chance to talk about the areas of work that they are focused on. Yeah, really, it's a great team, and really excited to work with all these folks doing the work that we have implementing the local development business plan. So next slide, please. Just a brief history. So East Bay Community Energy did engage on a development exercise in consultation with our community, really in the run-up to launching the organization. That culminated in the local development business plan, which really kind of highlighted a lot of different areas for local development, including things like the data and analytics systems that we've built, as well as other things kind of outside of local programs. From a programmatic perspective, the local development business plan really focused on 6 areas: building electrification, transportation electrification, energy efficiency, demand response, which we're calling grid services now, solar and storage, which we kind of renamed resilience, and then community investment in the form of community grants. And so the work that we have put together, bringing in kind of experts in the field to help build this team, have really kind of morphed from that original local development business plan and thought of different ways of implementing a lot of the concepts within the local development business plan, and adding some new and innovative ideas for delivering community benefits as well. Next slide, please. So speaking to the kind of innovating on delivery models, one of the big areas of focus for us has been, testing new options for scaling and delivering benefits, not through solely kind of traditional models of, say, incentives, which have a limited ability to scale because there's limited dollars, and really thinking about how the work that we are doing can kind of scale aggressively, because we've thought about a different way to deliver services. And so one way that we're really working on that is kind of leading as a procurement agent for our cities and county, as you're working to deliver on your climate action plans and to your residents and businesses, and how we can facilitate those investments through our procurement capabilities. So a few examples that you'll hear through this discussion is our Resilient Critical Facilities program, where we're helping cities install solar and storage for resilience for your customers, for your residents and businesses. Also working to develop publicly available fast charging for electric vehicles and looking to site those at city-owned lots and garages, or things like providing technical assistance to our cities as you're evaluating opportunities for electrifying your fleets, and then how we can help you on implementing those fleet electrification plans that EVC has delivered. So different approaches to getting to the outcomes that we are focused on. We're also working with different ways on leveraging East Bay's capital and the dollars that we have set aside for local programs. Access to capital and access to financing has often been used in many industries, and certainly in clean tech, if we think about how the solar market has evolved over time and really been scaled by new ways to deploy capital. We're looking at ways to deploy capital as well. So we've given some low interest loans to support different programs like our Healthy Home program. We're giving low cost capital to a counterparty to help support project development, can lower the cost to a customer, as well as increase the number and the kind of credit rating of customers on the low moderate income scale who can participate in that program. Last week, the board approved our $4.5 million loan to Forum Mobility for a heavy duty charging project. Or we're bringing kind of projects forward with the investment of capital. So we paid for the filing of a lot of net metering interconnection applications because we had a small window that was closing for kind of higher value solar and storage projects. And we had line of sight to developing a large portfolio of solar and storage projects. And by investing up to $1 million up front, we were essentially able to kind of ensure that we could save our cities more money than if we waited with our Resilient Critical Facilities program. So we're looking at different ways that we can deploy capital. We've also evaluated ways to provide no-cost loans to our cities as you're evaluating your electrification goals. And certainly learning by doing is really quite important. One thing I did want to note is we have a lot of customer programs on the low income side that are not covered within the local programs team. They're sitting in Annie's team under her Connected Communities manager. So deploying things like CARE for low income customers, or the arrearage management plan, our solar discount program that are kind of giving discounted rates to our customers, is no longer within the local programs team. That sits within Annie's team. So this doesn't cover all of our programs. There's some programs that the marketing and account services team is focused on deploying. Next slide, please. So as Audrey Chinose mentioned, we are focused on deploying Salesforce as a tool, and have deployed Salesforce as a tool to provide kind of multiple values across the organization. So our backend team uses it to manage accounts and manage and log customer calls. We also do that through SMUD, and Annie's team can kind of cover that part of it. What we have been focused on doing is making sure that any of our local programs are and program enrollments are logged in Salesforce. And so we have a couple of old programs that we are bringing data into Salesforce so that we've got all of the historical information in Salesforce. And then any new programs that we are developing and delivering have kind of our customers all managed within the Salesforce environment. That can mean the end-to-end process completely managed within Salesforce, or we have also built the tools such that we can kind of manage the intake process on Salesforce, so we know which customers, residents, and businesses are interested in our programs, but then we allow for a vendor to access restricted information so they can kind of manage the sales or the participation process in their own systems, because we're not trying to build an end-to-end enterprise Salesforce enterprise tool. So we can outsource some of that to a selected vendor to kind of manage the customer interaction, and then bring back in at the end any information related to participating customers. So we can kind of track the metrics and the participants and let our vendors who are selected do their work. And that's a dynamic process where we can kind of choose one path or another. And as you're all aware, we're also going through some branding discussions and how we think about customer interactions and managing those customer interactions. And having Salesforce as a tool kind of gives us the flexibility to bring more of that management in-house, or excuse me, to continue to kind of outsource some parts of the customer journey to our vendors. Importantly, within Salesforce, what it also allows us to do is to see who is participating and benefiting from our program. So when a care customer is participating, or someone who lives in a low income or disadvantaged community is participating in one of our programs, we can see that. So this is a work in progress. We've really been trying to get all of our customer data and participation within Salesforce. And then we also think about kind of broader economy-wide benefits of our local programs. So as part of the local development business plan, that process delivered a set of metrics that could be measured and a tool for measuring those metrics. It's a econometrical tool called InPlan. And so we've had a longer term plan of kind of getting all of our participation and dollars invested in these different programs into InPlan, so we can report out to the board on those larger economy-wide benefits. We recently brought on Heidi, who's part of our team, as a local programs reporting analyst, and she's helping on both of those activities so that we can get information out on kind of the metrics and customer impacts of our programs. Next slide, please. And then we also have a lot of activities that are really focused on kind of low-income communities and low-income community participation. So not only do we have targeted programs that are specifically focused on low-income communities, like Healthy Homes, our low moderate income electrification program, and our medical baseline battery program for medical baseline customers. But then, kind of equity and low-income focus really runs through the core of most of our programs. So as an example of that, our transportation electrification related programs, on the light duty side, we did a lot of work focused on multifamily and affordable housing, and developing charging infrastructure in proximity to multifamily housing, and requiring some incentives delivered to the state to be within proximity to multifamily and affordable housing. And our zero emission medium and heavy duty vehicle goods movement strategy is also largely focused and has a huge equity component because of the disproportionate impacts that diesel emissions have on our low income customers. Another example is with our upcoming electric bike program. 40% of the budget has been allocated to low income customer participation. And once again, tracking kind of all of our program participation will help to clarify and confirm that those incentive dollars and any program goals that we have around care and low-income customers are being met when we actually implement and deliver those programs. Just a brief update on the local programs, and I'll start passing between the team now. Jesse Denver, who's our Director of Transportation Electrification and Market Development, will be taking this first section on TE, and Brett will kick in at the end on our e-bikes.
All right, great, thanks JP. And for those of you that I haven't met, I'm Jesse Denver, and I'm the Director of our Transportation Electrification Program, and I will be tag teaming with Zach Thompson, and then we'll hand it over to Brett. So bear with us, because this is an area where we have some of the largest investments in the local development program. So there are a lot of slides here, and I'm going to try to fly through as much as I can quickly. But just to set the stage, next slide please, Adrian. Just to set the stage for you all, in our service territory, about 47% of all residents live in multifamily housing. And we assess the building stock of multifamily housing with 5 or more units throughout our service territory and found that 90% of that building stock is 50 years old or older. What that means is that those buildings are going to need electrical upgrades to be able to manage the integration of level 1 and or level 2 charging so that residents who are renters have the ability to charge at home. That, of course, is not going to happen at scale anytime soon. And we certainly need to then come up with an alternative solution to ensuring that all residents have access to the near-term benefits of electric vehicles, especially renters who don't currently have the ability to charge at home. So that is a driving factor in our light-duty transportation electrification strategy. And so, we also want to make sure within our strategy that we're not just providing solutions to half of our residents, but we also want to be able to help our cities lead by example. And so we're doing that in a few ways by partnering with them on deploying fast charging infrastructure at municipal facilities to help fill those gaps where residents who are renters, visitors don't have access to enough public fast charging currently, and through helping you all electrify your own municipal fleets so that, again, you're leading by example in the communities that we all serve. And then, as JP noted, Brett's going to talk about our pending e-bike program and some micromobility strategies that we're getting ready to line up so that we're encouraging mode shift and, of course, like transit first and the ability to get around without a vehicle. First and foremost, which aligns with all of your strategies too. And then on the medium and heavy duty goods movement front, our service territory is by all accounts one of the most strategic trade locations in the United States, and we have all the major freight corridors in our service territory. So this is also a very large area of investment for us and focus on the team. So the strategy, the strategic priorities that we're trying to achieve by implementing the actions that I'm going to run through today are really making sure that we are providing incentives for publicly available charging, developing our own fast charging network, accelerating municipal fleet electrification, launching our e-bike incentive and lending program, and then really establishing our service territory as a first mover market for zero emission, medium and heavy duty goods movement. So the first project I'm going to talk about, next slide please, is our Alameda County Incentive Project. And this is a program that we launched in partnership with the California Energy Commission in December of 2021. We co-funded this with the California Energy Commission. They put in $14.5 million for incentives that would be eligible for level 2 and DC fast charging equipment. Level 2 charging equipment charges a car in 4 to 12 hours, depending on the type of level 2 charger that it is. A DC fast charger will charge a car in an hour or less. So that's the difference between the charging technologies. Level 2 chargers are really used at some grocery stores, places where you're going to spend longer time dwelling, workplaces, and then really applicable for multifamily housing where that can be installed. EBCE's contribution was $3 million, and it was solely for the level 2, this should say level 2 infrastructure, not DC fast charging. So we're getting ready to close this project out. And I really want to highlight that when we developed this program, the single thread that ran through all the requirements was equity. So we actually required that 50% of the total program budget, $17.3 million, had to be for projects that were in disadvantaged and low income census tract geographic areas. We also ensured that 50% of the budget that was allocated for DC fast chargers by the California Energy Commission had to be in areas that EBCE calls our multifamily hotspots. And that's the top map that you see. So we've actually mapped all of those multifamily properties throughout our service territory to see where in our service territory we have the densest concentration of housing that has rental units in it. And what we said to the California Energy Commission was we really need to focus on deploying DC fast charging hubs in these areas because there are major gaps in access where there are complete charging deserts where tens of thousands of residents live but don't have any access to fast charging at all. And so we mapped all that information for the CEC and they approved that allocation of 50% of the DC fast charging budget going for projects that are in our multifamily hotspots. We also had an additional incentive adder for any affordable multifamily housing property anywhere in our service territory. And this was really important because before the CEC allowed incentive adders, but only for multifamily properties that were in disadvantaged and low-income communities. And what we said was, wow, we serve a really big geographic area. And we have mapped where all of the affordable multifamily properties are. And that's the bottom map that you see there. So all the green dots are affordable multifamily housing properties, which of course are income eligible properties. And as you can see, the blue highlights on the map are disadvantaged and low income census tract. And there are a lot of affordable multifamily housing properties that are actually outside of disadvantaged and low income census tract. And the whole intent of the affordable multi-housing family providers is to provide low-income housing to low-income residents, irregardless of whether they're in a disadvantaged disadvantaged community or low-income census tract. So we were able to accomplish that, and we allocated another amount of budget where EBCE contracted with a provider, a service provider, and we offered free site assessments to our affordable multifamily housing providers, where we actually went out, did site assessments to see if they could install charging infrastructure and then provide them with a concierge service to apply for incentives. Next slide, please. So we've had some really great results from this program. The total of number of sites in our service territory that currently have reserved incentives is in excess of 130 sites. 92 of those are for level 2 chargers. So then again, that's a mix of retail, workplace, some multifamily housing. And then there's more than 40 sites that will receive incentives from the California Energy Commission for DC fast chargers. And there's even more on a wait list, and the CEC is getting ready to allocate some more money to that wait list. That particular area of funding oversubscribed within 4 minutes in excess of $20 million. So there's a lot of demand for fast charging. 54% of our level 2 projects are in disadvantaged and low income communities, and 63% of the budget for DC fast charging are in those areas as well. 44% increase. So the number of DC fast chargers that we're going to install through this program is a 44% increase in DC fast chargers from before we started the program. And we are 287% of our multifamily housing hotspot target from that 50% budget that we allocated in those areas for fast charging. So as you can see, this has been a really successful program, and it's been great to work with the California Energy Commission on this. We are bringing the program to a close in July, and every city in our service territory in Alameda County, because this program was specific to Alameda County, has chargers being installed in it, except for Piedmont. Next slide, please. So because there's so much demand for fast charging, EBCE, we kind of took a step back and said, hey, you know, could you fill in some gaps where the private sector hasn't really been focused or prioritizing their investments? And, you know, we looked at this very closely and we said, yes, we want to deploy fast charging hubs. And our goal is to deploy 40 to 50 of these hubs by 2030. Each hub kind of has a standard design of 10 dual port DC fast chargers. So that's 20-ish parking spaces at a single site. We do have some flexibility there if there are big constraints at the site, like if it's a great site, but the capacity on the surrounding PG&E grid circuits is not there. We can reduce the size of the project, but generally we're trying to aim for that gas station model. That also looks very much like the Tesla network, where if you pull up, there's a lot of ports and you're going to likely have access to a port. So for our phase 1 projects, we are partnering with our cities who are providing parking stalls at your parking garages, municipal parking lots, and in some cases, public right of way, so curbside spaces as well. And, you know, we, again, are citing these projects in our multifamily hotspots to make sure that we are providing access where that doesn't exist today. And that's what the bottom map shows here is these are the existing DC fast chargers that the private sector has built. And the size of the bubble kind of indicates how many ports are at a single spot versus others. And then you can see that overlaid with our multifamily housing hotspots, which are the red squares, and each of those squares represents a square mile. So what you see is basically there are huge charging deserts where people who are renters in multifamily housing today have zero access to charging infrastructure. And we need to change that so that we can help achieve the state's zero emission vehicle goals and really start to get those residents to transition to zero emission vehicle options. We do have funding to start building out our fast charging network. The board of directors approved between 2023 and 2033 a $30 million budget, which is $3 million annually for this to help us build this out. And we'll be doing that with a private sector development partner, development partners through what's called a tolling agreement. And we also came to the board for approval for that a few months ago. So next slide, please. And here are some results of our efforts in collaborating with your staff on deploying the network. Is we have 11 site license and or master site license agreements signed with our cities and or in progress. We have a few that are going to council in the next couple months. And this represents a total potential of 1,000 parking spaces. Our phase 1 portfolio is 11 sites, 114 DC fast chargers, which represents 214 EV only stalls. So across these 11 sites, there will be 214 new EV only fast charging stalls available publicly to the community. We have, these projects are in conceptual design right now and PG&E's service planning process because these do need to be connected to the grid. And as you can see here on the map, where the existing DC fast charge network was from the previous slide with our multifamily hotspots, and then the green dots are the gaps that we're filling in with these projects. Next slide, please. And just quickly, here's an example of one of the projects. This is at the City Center West Garage. This garage has over 1,400 parking stalls, and the city has allocated to us about 32 spaces in that parking garage, so right down the street from here. The DC fast chargers will be spread across 3 levels of the parking garage with adequate signage so that people know where to find the charging ports. The garage itself will be accessible 24/7 once we energize the chargers. That is something that the city is working on changing. And there will be no fees for drivers to enter and park in the garage for up to 60 minutes to use the fast chargers themselves. We, EBCE, will be setting the rate that drivers need to pay to charge And we've modeled that we think we can do that at least a 10% discount from what private sector providers are doing today on the existing network. So this gives you a good sense here of the City Center West Garage is represented, the black dot kind of right in the middle. And then you can see how many multifamily properties are around this particular facility and will enable that access to renters that doesn't exist today. And of course, it's not exclusively for renters because it's located near 880 and 980 and all the major highways. You know, visitors and commuters alike will be able to use this infrastructure. So now I'm going to hand over the next 3 slides to my colleague, Zach Thompson. As we mentioned, we've been providing no cost municipal fleet electrification technical assistance to each of our cities and the county over the last couple years to help you understand how you can move forward in transitioning your light duty fleet vehicles. So Zach's going to give some more detail on that.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, just a couple of months ago, we wrapped up our municipal fleet electrification program where EBC offered that free technical assistance to each of our member jurisdictions, where our consultant team completed fleet electrification plans that showed that each jurisdiction how they could replace each of their light duty municipal fleet vehicles with EVs over the course of a 10-year period based on the duty cycles of those vehicles and the EV models available now that could suit those use cases, as well as looking at each fleet's vehicle life cycle plans as well. So those plans were completed for 12 of our jurisdictions' light duty fleets, as well as 1 transit bus fleet. And so again, those plans show how to replace those vehicles over a 10-year period and what charging infrastructure would be necessary to support those electrified vehicles within the fleet. And then also showed what that total cost of ownership would look like over a 10-year period, as well as a greenhouse gas emission reduction analysis as well over 10 years. So across those 13 plans that were completed, 2,300 vehicles were recommended to be replaced with electric models over the 10-year period. And to support those 2,300 EVs, the team assessed over 100 different facilities where those vehicles are domiciled and recommended that nearly 1,000 level 2 chargers be installed and 41 DC fast chargers be installed across those facilities to support the 2,300 EVs. And then to charge those vehicles, that would require about 2.3 megawatts per year of electricity. And to procure the vehicles and procure and install the charging stations and operate and maintain the vehicles and chargers as well will require an investment over $84 million. So this really brings a picture of the scale of work that has been done by EBCE and our consultant team on these plans, and the work that will need to be done to actually implement these plans. And so since those have been completed, we've already seen a number of cities take action and leverage those plans. So for example, the city of Berkeley has already approved significant budget for their fleet charging infrastructure. City of Oakland has purchased some EVs already and is leveraging their plan to request additional budget now. Hayward also has approved $3 million annually for vehicle replacement. And then others are using these plans as well now to make their budget requests, like Pleasanton and Tracy and Dublin as well. And then Union City Transit has actually already placed their orders for their electric buses, and those are scheduled to be delivered already. And they're working with us now on our charging as a service agreement for the charging infrastructure to support those electric buses. And I'll touch base on that again in a minute here, but I can go on to the next slide. So this is an example of some screenshots that were taken from one of these plans, this one being for the city of Livermore. So this first graphic here on the left shows kind of the summary of what it looks like over a 10-year period for the total cost of ownership analysis, and comparing the baseline scenario of continuing to operate gas-powered vehicles versus the electrification scenario of transitioning all those vehicles over to EVs and installing all of the infrastructure necessary. So it summarizes what that total cost looks like over the 10-year period at the top of these two bar charts. And then each of these line items here, pulls out what the capital expense is needed compared to baseline to electrify those vehicles. So that's that initial cost of procuring the vehicles and procuring and installing the charging infrastructure as well. But then it also shows what the operational savings are for operating an electric fleet over the existing gas fleet over the 10-year period as well. And then gets into some detail about what charging is being recommended to be installed, and summarizes the 10-year greenhouse gas reductions. It gives a little snapshot of what the current fleet looks like and how many EVs that would be to transition. And then on the right side, the top chart here shows what the actual vehicle replacement schedule looks like and what the cost looks like of electrifying those vehicles over an annual basis. So again, comparing the transition cost to the baseline cost on a year-by-year aspect there. And then the middle chart here is showing what the charging infrastructure looks like at the different facilities that those fleet vehicles are domiciled at, how many chargers would be needed at each facility, and what those costs look like. And then the bottom there is the 10-year greenhouse gas emission reduction graph there as well. So you can go on to the next slide. So next steps after completing these plans, EBCE, we're supporting our member jurisdictions further by offering this charging as a service product like we're doing now with Union City Transit. So basically what these look like are an agreement between EBCE and each city, where EBCE is responsible for that upfront cost of procuring and installing the charging infrastructure, as well as the ongoing operation and maintenance costs of the charging infrastructure. And then the city will pay EBCE an annual fee so that we can recover those costs over a 10-year period. And this was really spurred in the feedback that we've gotten from our member jurisdictions about what their biggest barriers are to electrifying their fleets. And the main one that kept coming up is that upfront cost of both replacing the vehicles with EV models, but also procuring and installing the charging infrastructure. So our thought here was if EBCE can take on the charging infrastructure costs and responsibilities, that will enable our cities to focus their budget requests on actually procuring more EVs at a faster rate. And on that note, we're also exploring collaborative EV procurement options between EBCE and the cities. So what we can do to actually help further deploy EVs at a faster rate within these fleets. And then we'll also be now offering additional free technical assistance that will do these same types of fleet electrification plans, but for each jurisdiction's medium and heavy duty vehicles, whereas what we've done to date has been focused on light duty vehicles only. And we'll really try to focus this on the jurisdictions that will have to comply with the California Air Resources Board's pending advanced clean fleet regulation, which at the moment is focused on fleets that have 50 plus medium and heavy duty vehicles. So we know already that would apply to the county and then the cities of Berkeley, Oakland, Hayward, Fremont, Livermore, Tracy. So we'll initially be offering this to them, and we'll of course be meeting with the city of Stockton as well about these different initiatives accordingly. I think you can go on to the next slide and I will turn it back over to Jesse.
Thanks, Zach. All right. So talking more about medium and heavy duty vehicles, most of our strategy is very focused on goods movement vehicles. So these are class 2B through class 8 vehicles that move consumer goods. And that's not just drayage trucks that move goods from the ports of Oakland and Stockton and or Oakland International Airport, which also serves as a import-export gateway for goods. This also includes the ecosystem of all of the vehicles, like box trucks and delivery vans and other regional, medium and heavy duty haul vehicles that never even have a footprint at the Port of Oakland. And we're not focused on transit buses, even though we did help Union City with their transit buses because they do have a small fleet. The other large transit agencies through a state ruling, they actually had to create plans and submit that to the state on how, as a large transit agency, they are going to transition their bus fleets to zero emission buses. So AC Transit has a plan that's submitted and they're well on their way with how they're moving that forward, as does some of the other larger transit agencies. So they're good, they're on their way. And so that's why we offered the help to Union City, because they are smaller and they did not have to submit that kind of a plan. So with that, you know, as Zach mentioned, we want to help our municipal fleets with medium and heavy duty vehicles that are not goods movement per se, because there are these state regulations that either have been passed or going to be passed in the coming months that your cities will have to adhere to. So the first, kind of just to set the stage on regulations and what's driving market development of medium and heavy, zero emission, medium and heavy duty vehicles is the Advanced Clean Trucks rule. And this has actually already been passed by the California Air Resources Board. This requires manufacturers of medium and heavy duty trucks and vans to sell an increasing percentage of zero emission vehicles into the marketplace starting next year. Then we have the regulation that Zach mentioned, which is Advanced Clean Fleets, and that is pending at CARB, and it actually has fleet purchase requirements. So your cities and goods movement fleets will need to start actually procuring vehicles and integrating them into their portfolio of operations starting next year. So this applies to drayage trucks, which are the trucks that do have a footprint at the ports, high priority and public fleets. And so the definition there is a fleet that has 50 or more medium or heavy duty vehicles anywhere in the state of California. So a cumulative total of 50 or more vehicles. And so we know that, you know, this transition is happening, and where we're at today, this is what the image is here on the deck. This comes from kind of the middle of last year, but it's pretty close to what's still happening statewide. There are not a lot of zero emission trucks on the road today in California. So just, you know, to be realistic about where we are in the marketplace, we're at step one in the marketplace. And so we, ABCE, really have this amazing opportunity to become a first mover market for zero emission, medium and heavy duty goods movement vehicles. Again, because our service territory is one of the most strategic trade locations in the US. We have all of the major freight corridors in our service territory. We have the Port of Oakland. Now we're going to have the Port of Stockton. Those freight corridors, you know, reach out through I-580 to 205 and connect to I-5, which then, you know, connects us to state and national markets. And in coordinating with our colleagues up in SMUD territory in Sacramento and down through the Central Valley and into Southern California, everybody's working on this, you know, it enables us to coordinate so that we really can create some end-to-end solutions or barbell solutions, so that drayage trucks leaving the Port of Oakland might have charging infrastructure at the port, but they also need it in Livermore so that they can get up and over the Altamont and back from the Central Valley if they're moving Central Valley agricultural products, for example, to and from San Joaquin County and into our service territory. So that is our goal, is to start really implementing a number of projects and programs that moves the marketplace, and of course that then has inherent public health benefits, especially to our most vulnerable communities who have been disproportionately burdened by diesel pollution from medium and heavy duty goods movement trucks. And I'm just going to highlight one of our big efforts, because a lot of the activities that we have currently in process kind of fall under this umbrella. So we received a grant from the California Energy Commission to develop a zero emission medium and heavy duty goods movement blueprint. And we worked with regional stakeholders and kind of looked at all the past plans that have been developed around freight in Alameda County. And they all say, you know, the prospects of zero emission trucks will, you know, be great in the future, but none of them actually said, how are we going to transition this marketplace and this ecosystem? And that's the goal of EBCE, developing this blueprint on behalf of all of the stakeholders in our service territory, is this guide on how we're going to actually make that transition happen. And so we have a multi-agency, multi-kind of stakeholder consensus process that's been underway for the last year. We've been analyzing every amount of available data that we have to really understand the ecosystem of vehicles and the vehicle operators and their types. So in our service territory, there are over 40,000 medium and heavy duty vehicles registered. That includes transit buses and other types of vehicles, like some in your municipal fleet, that are not goods movement. So in addition to analyzing the DMV registration data, we also paired that information with the type of vocation the truck is actually engaged in. And we did that by leveraging NAICS codes that are tied to our customer accounts. And then from there, we're able to narrow this ecosystem of 40,000 medium and heavy duty vehicles, specifically to 16,000-ish goods movement vehicles. So vehicles and vehicle operators that are engaged in the movement of consumer goods. And then we mapped all that information. And so this has really enabled us to start saying, all right, if we develop products and services and technical assistance, who do we want to offer those services and products to first? And how do we create strategies to make sure that we're getting to the people to the fleets and vehicle operators and companies who have near-term opportunity to actually start to transition their vehicles and or have a mandate to do that? And how do we prioritize our limited budget to do those activities where it's going to have the biggest impact? So right now, kind of the vocations and vehicles that have market ready solutions kind of look like 2,800 different vehicle operators. Of those vehicle operators, more than 1,500 of them only have one truck. So we can't offer all of that, all of the services and products that we want to initially to those single truck operators. So we're really looking at vehicle operators with 5 or more vehicles right now. And then future iterations of the things that we roll out, the solutions that we roll out will, broaden that as we have more budget to do more. So this is an ecosystem of over 9,000 vehicles that we're trying to tackle. And so there's plenty of work for us to do there. And we're looking at 5 priority areas within the blueprint and developing these actions that will help guide how we create how we make our service territory a first mover market for zero emission class 3 through 6, which is the medium duty trucks by 2028, and 100% zero emission drayage trucks. So these are the bigger trucks, class 7, 8 by 2035. This also aligns with the state's mandate for drayage trucks, and 100% zero emission for all other class 7, 8 goods movement vehicles by 2040. And we have 5 key areas where we're developing these actions. Some of them, you're kind of already familiar with. So like within the vehicles category, one of the things that we've heard from vehicle operators, first and foremost, is they need technical assistance. Like the technical assistance we've given to your cities to understand how do we transition your municipal fleet vehicles? We need to offer that same kind of technical assistance and pair it with incentive and grant writing concierge service. And we actually piloted something like this last year, and we were the first load serving entity in California to kind of offer this comprehensive packaged approach. And we're getting ready to scale that now. You all just approved an amendment to an existing contract we have with our consultant team to enable that. So thank you very much. Other areas within the blueprint where we're developing actions is infrastructure financing. So these both pair with the Forum Mobility charging project that you all approved last week in Livermore. So this is an early action that's kind of embedded in the blueprint. And then we have actions in workforce development and community benefits as well. Thank you. So now I'm going to hand it over to Brett, who's going to talk about our pending e-bike incentive and lending program.
Great. Thanks, Jesse. And for those on the board I haven't met yet, my name is Brett Weiner, and I'm managing our residential electric mobility programs, which currently includes an e-bike program. And we're also accelerating, dreaming up and thinking about how we can accelerate EV adoption. So if you have any ideas on that, feel free to drop me an email and I can post that in the chat. But for now, our e-bike program, currently our goal is to increase access to electric bikes throughout our service area. And throughout this program, at least 40% of the benefits will be going to EVC care customers. The program has 3 prongs. It will include marketing, education, and outreach, which will be not only about the program, but also about e-bikes in general, so that even folks who might not participate in this program can be more informed about e-bikes and how they could be a good fit for a transportation mode. The other 2 prongs are more of the program implementation, which will be around a short-term lending and an ownership option, which I'll get to in the next slide. This program is 3 years and $10 million, which I think is really important to note because, you know, throughout our service area, this will be the investment over that 3-year period of time. By comparison, the state of California is launching their own income qualified only e-bike program later this month or next, and that will be $10 million for the entire state. So this is a significant investment in electric mobility for our service area and our customers. So really appreciate the board approving the initial $6 million allotment, which will be $2 million over the next 3 years per year. We also were able to secure a $4 million funding partnership with the Alameda County Transportation Commission to combine with our $6 million to make that a $10 million program. Both that funding partnership agreement and our proposed contract for this program is proposed to be going to the board in May. And so you should be seeing that quite shortly. In terms of the breakdown in funding, about 20% of the program's dollars will be spent on the lending component, and the other 80% will be spent on the ownership component. There are already, in addition to CARB's California e-bike program, the City of Oakland and City of Berkeley also have e-bike programs, and we'll be working closely with them, as well as a lot of our other community partners, like Bike East Bay, to roll out this program. In terms of the draft timeline, as I mentioned, contracting, hoping to get contract and the funding agreement to the board in May, with a goal of doing a soft launch and testing out the implementation in September, and a full launch by the end of the year. Next slide. So the 2 interventions we have, essentially a try and then you buy. The short-term lending program, we will hopefully have lending libraries across our service area. Right now, we're thinking 5 to 7 physical locations, but that might change. We're doing the program design over the summer and testing out the feasibility of those locations versus maybe other operations. For example, maybe partnering with an existing bike shop that we could do bike rentals through them instead of setting up our own lending library. The customers would be able to rent the e-bike for 1 to 2 week experiences. And before they rent the e-bike, they would get training, including training on an e-bike, which is really important because even for folks that bike commute, like myself, an e-bike is 50 to 70 pounds. And so this is a substantial piece of hardware that is drastically different than a manual bike, even for folks that currently ride. And then, of course, training on road safety to make sure that when people are on these bikes, they're staying safe for themselves and other pedestrians and others. They'll also be provided with a helmet and a lock to also stay safe and keep the bikes. And the goal for this program is to have 4,000 to 6,000 sessions per year through lending. The ownership is a point of sale incentive. We really want to make sure that people don't have to put upfront money with the hope of getting the rebate, but rather they will receive a voucher so they can redeem that. And the priority would be to redeem that at local bike shops, but there will also be an online marketplace to supplement the local bike shops. And then we're hoping, the goal in the program, again, 40% of the benefits would go to care customers that will have throughout the 3 years, 7,000 expected e-bike purchases. One really important thing to note about this program is one of the core goals of this program is to help with mode shifting. So helping people to get out of single occupancy vehicles, especially into bikes. And as a result of that, we, class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes will be allowed, but we will not be allowing electric road bikes or electric mountain bikes because this program is geared towards commuters and electric trips, not recreational vehicles. And that's all I have for this, and I will pass it off to Allison.
Great. I think we can go to the next slide. Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Lopez. I definitely haven't met any of you yet, so hello. I am the Energy Efficiency Program Analyst, and I joined EBCE in September of last year. Actually, if we could go one more slide, and then I'm going to come back to this slide. Okay, so I'm going to talk today about our Energy Efficiency Program, which is really exciting. This is a commercial energy efficiency program. It's a ratepayer funded program. We were approved in September of last year by the CPUC to administer this program. And we have selected the program implementer Cascade Energy to be the lead or primary implementer for this program. So going over a few program objectives of this commercial energy efficiency program, because it is a ratepayer funded program, one of the primary objectives of this program is to deliver cost-effective energy savings to our customers, in addition to cross-promoting demand response opportunities, as well as load shifting strategies to maximize peak load reductions, as well as encourage electrification projects throughout this program. In speaking a little bit more about the actual program design, this program will leverage a strategic energy management program design, which is pretty exciting because it's a unique program design that focuses on holistic energy savings within a building, as opposed to providing incentives on technology-specific projects. So traditional commercial energy efficiency programs provide incentives for specific technology types like HVAC or lighting. This type of program design, SCM, focuses on holistic energy savings of a building and it's technology agnostic. So it provides incentives to customers based off of realized energy savings at the meter, which is a unique program. So the way that this program will work is Cascade Energy will recruit 34 high usage commercial and industrial customers across EBCE's territory and enroll them into this program. And what Cascade Energy will do is provide each of these customers with a free site assessment or energy site assessment of their buildings and list out all of the potential energy savings opportunities for this particular building or particular site for all of these customers. These energy savings opportunities will range from very low to no cost building optimization strategies, but also list out opportunities for these customers to pursue capital energy efficiency upgrades as well as electrification projects. So it's really a very tailored program design. And Cascade Energy throughout this entire program will provide each customer with very tailored technical assistance and energy coaching and education to help the customer throughout their energy journey. And then lastly, as I mentioned, incentives will be paid directly to customers based off of their performance at the meter. So again, hitting back onto that technology agnostic component. This program is set to launch in May. So the beginning of May, we're approaching ending out our contracting process. It's set to launch in the beginning of May. And we're really excited about this program because it is a very cost-effective program. And it is also a way that we see a very high customer touchpoint program in a way for us to develop really deep relationships with each of these 34 customers and build brand recognition and EBC brand awareness and build relationships with those really high usage customers. And it's also an opportunity to test strategies for commercial electrification. Commercial electrification is a rather new area and it's less mature than residential electrification. So this provides a great opportunity to test strategies there. All right, and next slide.
Go to the previous slide, Adrian.
Yeah, so I will touch on this briefly. In addition to energy efficiency, EBC is also in the process of developing a strategy for grid reliability. As the state continues to electrify, as I mentioned in the previous program that we're promoting a bunch of electrification projects, this will mean that more electric technologies and storage technologies will be deployed within our service territory. And so that means that there's going to be more electric demand in our service territory. And so we are in the process right now of trying to understand how we can manage those electric technologies as behind the meter resources and manage those technologies to benefit our overall procurement obligations and provide EBCE with procurement value. So this is a concept that we have tested through a variety of pilots, as you can see listed here. I won't go through each of them, but we have tested this concept across a variety of different technology types, solar and storage, EV charging, as well as a couple of different customer segments. And so the idea here is that we want to build from the lessons learned within these pilots to grow a more evolved grid services strategy for EBCE. And I think the key takeaway here is that this grid services concept is still in its ideation phase. We have an internal working group working to sort of information gather across other CCA programs, talk with demand response providers to get a sense of where the market is at. And ultimately, we want to provide a recommendation for where EBCE should take this program strategy in the future. And I can pass it on.
Thanks, Allison. Yeah, we'll go. Helen will talk a little bit about some of our induction programs.
Hi everyone, my name is Helen Mejias. Nice to meet everyone. And yeah, I'll be talking about our induction hookup lending program. So we can go ahead and move to the next slide. So this program was launched in May 2022, so still a little new, but so far there have been over 590 applications that have been submitted for this program with 261 completed lending sessions. That means that they've gone through the program and they've also returned the kit. So this program is, we have applicants from all across EBCE cities, but we have about 11, we do have 11 lending hubs at the moment. We are working on increasing some of our not just distribution locations, but also the kits at these locations. There is big interest from the community in testing these out. We do have some wait lists at some of our locations. So working through some of that with our team in terms of being able to meet the interest that our community has in trying out induction. At the same time, we are developing content to pretty much promote education on induction, promote the program, and generate awareness about induction, which has been a really big topic lately, especially in the news. So just making sure that we're working with our marketing team to develop this content in various forms. This can be through social media, this is on our website, through videos. So a bunch of different fun ways that we also work with our local partners in the area, local organizations, to kind of promote this program as well. And one of the things that we also do with this program is a pre and post participation survey, just to see, you know, what folks think about the technology, whether they're interested in perhaps purchasing this now that they've tried the kit. So a bunch of questions that we ask our customers before and after the lending session to see how they're feeling about the technology, especially now that they've tried it for free. So the lending period is 3 weeks. And yeah, they get to try it for free. They get a flat hub, excuse me. And we also do have walks in distribution. So we've recently added walks as well to some of our locations, and they do get a piece of cookware as well in case they don't already have the cookware needed. So that's kind of a brief overview of our program. We can go to the next slide. And yeah, so some of our outreach, we have videos on YouTube with some of our local chefs promoting induction. These have had more than 80,000 views. We get a lot of questions about them. People are really excited to, you know, not just talk about induction, but mostly about cooking, because cooking is something that everyone does. Everyone has an emotional connection to cooking, something that connects with family. So it's a little bit more than just promoting electric technology, but also that kind of emotional connection that we have to our homemade recipes, our family, our culture. So making sure that we are working with various different local chefs to provide, you know, information, and also just to different customer groups that we have. We've also, in addition to this, there's been cooking classes and demonstrations that our partner Actera has helped us develop, and looking forward to kind of developing these more moving forward. And then right now we do have one of our social media campaigns going ongoing, where people can participate in a clean cooking contest. They can post themselves cooking on something like this, and they can win prizes. Right now it's they can win top for free with you know, a bunch of instructions and stuff that they can use at home and keep. But trying to build on this, so there might be more to come on this clean cooking contest later on. But just another fun way for us to build awareness, brand awareness as well, and promote this technology in our service area. So yeah, that's all I have to say on this. Thanks all.
Thanks, Helen. Let's see, I'll take the next couple of slides. So in addition to the strong induction focus, we've been running a program called Healthy Home. And that program is working to deliver 60 energy efficiency and electrification upgrades to low and moderate income households. The electrification sector is pretty complicated, and we wanted to make sure that we were focusing efforts, you know, not only on all kind of market rate customers, but also our income qualified customers. So this program has incentives that are reserved for customers up to 120% of our area median income, as well as our care customers. What we did with this is we partnered with a company called Block Power, who focuses on this sector, and we provided both $400,000 in incentive funding to help reduce the cost for our low and moderate income customers. And then we also provided $1 million in low cost financing to Block Power, with the requirement that they kind of pass on the lower cost to the customer. So this reduces the cost of this financing by about 2 percentage points, 200 basis points for customer loans, and also widens the eligibility criteria. So by providing this funding, we were able to achieve those two benefits for customers participating. The goal is to install 60 projects, and these projects are pretty wide ranging. So they include induction or weatherization and air sealing. They can also include health and safety improvements to roofs or walls, as well as other electrification like heat pumps and other appliance upgrades to the house. We are, it's been slow, and we've been working with Block Power to try to solve some of the constraints in this program. We have an interim target of 30 sales by July to achieve our 60 sales by the end of calendar year, and have been doing a considerable amount of work with Block Power to help move this program along. What certainly comes up is it's a challenge to sell a big home improvement upgrade to anybody, and certainly also with low income customers. And so been really working hard to like figure out how to smooth that pipeline, as well as identifying kind of sources and channels for where we can bring in customers who have the ability and interest to participate in this program. Next slide, please. So we also have our community grants. Last year, the board approved a $4.2 million community investment grant budget for 3 years, this year and the next 2. So our goal here is to start issuing solicitations on grants. We've been spending some time with staff internal to the organization, identifying some grant opportunities and gaps that we want to be issuing grants for. And then we're also setting up a meeting, just talked with Chair Eldred on the CAC about setting up a community feedback session that we're planning to do in June, so we can get some community ideas for other granting opportunities to put together a schedule for issuing a series of kind of public solicitations to support our community grants going forward over the next few years. And then I will pass it to Felice to cover our last section on resilience.
I'm gonna stand up because I'm not very loud when I'm sitting down. So if you feel like
Get up
getting
and stretch.
yeah, if you feel like standing up, feel free to do that as well.
Thank you, Adrian.
I'm Felice Ventura. I'm the Resilience Program Manager at EBCE. I've been with EBCE for just over a year now, and really excited to have this time to talk with you all in general about our programs, but specifically about the resilience programs. I'll also flag it to you, this is the last section. So after this, we're looking forward to some great discussion. Okay, so the first program that I will talk about is called Resilient Home. It is, from the name, you might guess, a residential solar and storage program. So we deliver this program in partnership with Sunrun, who is a major solar installer across our service area. And our goal is to install over 2,000 residential solar and storage systems. The benefits of this is that you can use them on a day-to-day basis for things like bill savings, but also if the power goes out, those homes have the ability to use the backup power. As you can see, one of our cool ads is up here. You can keep the lights on with your battery during a blackout. One of the other really cool components of this program is that it doesn't just provide benefits to those who are in the program, but it actually provides benefits across our service area. So that's where this virtual power plant comes into play. So basically, as those batteries are operating on a daily basis, they're dispatching power to those houses. It means that those customers don't need to use power from the grid. That reduces the load on the grid, and it means that we as EBCE don't have as high of a peak during those peak periods. So that's good for everybody because it advances grid resilience and is a great benefit for folks even who cannot directly participate in the program. They still get some benefits. Who is eligible to participate in this program? So single and multifamily are eligible. On this front, as I mentioned, we partner with Sunrun, so they actually do the installation as well as provide financing options for these systems. So this isn't a situation where you have to come up with all the money up front. This program has been in operation since 2020. So it has over 1,200 participating customers right now. We've provided a lot of leads to Sunrun in this process. We work closely with them to sign up our customers for that. You can see some pretty great numbers in terms of that load reduction capability that I spoke about for the VPP, as well as 7 megawatts of solar installed. One of the things that I really like to talk about in this program is that it's actually been tried and tested. So you might remember in September, we had the heat storm. This VPP actually came into operation and delivered 55 megawatt hours to the grid during that time. So our customers enrolled in this program contributed to
helping keep the lights on across California at that time, which I think is great. This program is a 10-year program, so additional sales are forecast in 2023, and we'll continue to build that portfolio as we go forward. And next slide, please, Adrian. Okay, next I'll speak a little bit about our community solar programs. So EBCE is administering 2 distinct community solar programs right now. They both have just really terrible acronyms. One is called the Disadvantaged Communities Green Tariff, or DAC-GT, and the other is Community Solar Green Tariff, CSGT. You can see the program allocations in megawatts there, but it might be a little bit easier to think about it as over 2,000 customers who will be able to get a 20% bill discount and be served with solar energy. I would note that those bill discounts are in addition to any other special rates that they're on right now. So if they're on Care or Fair Rate, it would be 20% off of that. You can see on the map where some of our disadvantaged communities are. There's a list below, which describes all of the geographies for the disadvantaged communities. And this is a snapshot of a 3.0, the California Enviro Screen 3.0 assessment, not the 4.0 census tract. So this is a measurement that's done on a regular basis by the state with a lot of different metrics. You can dig very deep into that on the CalOSHA website if you'd like to. But this is a snapshot of a 3.0, which is the previous version as well. And then the 4.0 would be inclusive of this in terms of who it is that we would serve on this program. Adrian, is this still okay? Those customers, the title is serving renewable energy, developing renewable energy in underserved communities, and the Community Solar Green Tariff Project actually develops these projects within 5 miles of the customers that are served through them. So there is a clear nexus between the projects and the communities, and also in that case, projects need to have a community sponsor. So these communities come together to say that this is a project that they want, and they want to be able to benefit from the communities, and we work closely with our cities to ensure that sponsors are available for that part of the program. On the green tariff side, the DAC-GT side, programs will also be developed in our service area, not with the same degree of constraint in terms of location, but still very close to the customers that they serve. So at this point, we've sent out a request for offers as of December. We received offers on both sides of the program, which we're really, really excited about. So we can potentially serve those 2,000 plus customers. Offer review is in progress right now. So we expect to have a recommendation in the coming months and inform you all about that soon, and be able to deliver these projects, which per the request for offers need to be operational by early 2025. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, there's 2 slides on this, and then we'll get to some discussion. So next is resilient critical municipal facilities. This is a program that's a little bit similar to that resilient home program that I just described. There's solar and battery energy storage for public facilities. All cities have been contacted to participate in this program, which is an ongoing program, which advances energy resilience, but also climate action. So many of these facilities also have backup diesel generators, which we can minimize the use of. The phase 1 program consisted of 4 cities that you can see up on the slide. We're in a really exciting phase with those 4 cities because we're actually in contract negotiations with the development and financing team to build 3 megawatts of solar and 6 megawatts of storage across 30 sites in those 4 cities. So this is the largest procurement of its kind to date, and includes what I would describe as inward-facing community critical facilities, which would be things like fire stations or emergency operations centers, but also outward-facing facilities where the public can come in the event of a blackout to access phone charging, or even for air quality day and benefit from air purification. So 30 sites, and we're really excited about that. Once we get under contract, which should be by the end of May, we will The cities will have to approve those contracts with EBCE, and then a year from then, we would expect these microgrids to be in service. So we're talking approximately middle of next summer. We would be able to have these up and running for the benefit of our cities. Next slide, please. Okay, as we think about building on the lessons from phase one, we're going to leverage approaches that we've developed to engineering, to funding, to procurement that were all piloted in phase one as we continue this rolling program. So cities have already been inscribed for phase two, so 4 additional cities there, as well as phase three, which is currently an open call for more participants, Albany, Piedmont planning to participate, as well as Stockton upon joining. So we'll continue to do things like ensure the best possible treatment for these facilities by pursuing earmark funding. We previously also paid for NEM 2.0 applications for these facilities to also ensure the best possible treatment from a regulatory perspective. We're aiming to not only scale up this program, but also scale out in expanding the scope of it with a $35 million grant from the Department of Energy to support battery purchase, facility repair. So these facilities are not always in a perfect state of repair. They may need new roofs or new electrical panels, additional electrification, as well as the development of a virtual power plant across all of these critical municipal facilities in the future. Virtual power plant, again, is really similar to what I talked about in the Resilient Home program, where we would be able to use those batteries in a concerted way to lower peak demand. So they're providing benefits broadly to the community in addition to those facilities specifically. That grant is part of about $10.5 billion of federal funding that is targeted at the intersection of grid resilience and community resilience. So this is an area where there's a lot of interest from the federal folks, and we're happy to serve that interest with our critical municipal facilities program. I also wanted to give you a visual of what this actually looks like, right? We've talked about it in the abstract, but what do we mean when we say we're going to do this type of project at a critical municipal facility? So here you can see the blue stripes on this roof are locations where solar will be located, and then the blue, lighter blue boxes, or teal, are where the battery storage will be located. This is an outcome of some of the initial engineering that EBCE worked on for cities, and this is the type of image, one of the types of images that we work directly with cities to workshop and ensure that these facilities are in the right place, the right size, and the right way to meet the facility needs. And I think, Adrian, if I'm not wrong, that's the last slide. Yeah, perfect timing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That was the last slide. We actually moved some additional slides to the back that have other things that we've been doing that we didn't highlight today or that we've talked about recently. So this isn't all of the programs, but the ones that that we wanted to focus on today. And yeah, great. We kept to an hour and a half. Miracle of miracles.
Yes, I'm just very impressed. Thank you to everyone who presented. I know we all don't know each other yet, but we will get to know each other. And we didn't go around doing introductions because I want to make sure that we have time for questions. So thank you to everyone who presented. Before we take questions from members from this board, I want to see if there's any public comments on this presentation.
Yes. We have one hand raised from Jim Lutz, who recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Adrian and JP and your team. That was really great. The question I have, the top question I have several, but I'll limit it to one, is the resilient homes and resilient critical facilities. Sounded like you're limiting it to net energy metering. Is there an opportunity, or could EBC figure out a way to do it as a feed-in tariff so that you would be able to expand the benefits to beyond just the amount of electricity that facility or home would use? Because some homes and buildings have great solar roof and solar access and others don't, but it seems like you could go beyond what the individual building has. So that was my main question.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more comments?
There are no further questions and stuff.
Okay, so we'll take feedback from the committee members, and then if staff has a response to a public commenter, that would be great. We'll start with those participating remotely. Please raise your hand if you have any questions or feedback with regard to the presentation.
Olivia has her hand raised.
Yes, go ahead. We'll recognize Chair Eldred.
Thank you. That was fantastic. And I just really want to say thank you so much to staff for putting that together. It's exciting to see the growth and direction and the real innovation that that our staff are bringing together. It's like a proud moment to be part of this organization. I was listening to one part and remembering back when we were doing the public outreach sessions for the local development business plan, and also when I was part of the Equitable Climate Action Planning Committee for the City of Oakland, and we did a whole series of like we had neighborhood councils, right? And so each neighborhood actually had its own liaison, and they who lived in that neighborhood, and then they would go around and knock on their neighbors' doors and talk to them about the different options and concerns, and find out what their concerns were and find out what they thought about that. It was a level of engagement that I've actually not seen before. It was really cool. And the electric vehicle charging stations was something that received a lot of concern. And I hear the statements around like really leading, like we don't have electrical vehicle charging stations for big heavy industrial trucks, and we don't really have those trucks. And I am completely convinced that if you put in the charging infrastructure for that the trucks will follow. That makes total sense because that's industry. The feedback that we heard a lot in those neighborhood sessions, though, was that it felt like electric vehicle charging stations was using public funds to pay for gentrification infrastructure, and that those folks were really worried that they, like when you put this fancy new equipment in for vehicles that low-income folks can't actually afford, that you're incentivizing wealthier people to move into lower income neighborhoods because now they have the infrastructure they need. And I don't think we're going to solve that problem here, but I am curious if we have any data on electric vehicle adoption rates in these equity communities, and if we have any mechanism for tracking the effect of putting electric vehicle charging stations into these, they're communities with significant challenges, and like what the effect of this program is. So I'm wondering, like, what metrics do we have in place to do that? Can we actually see if that infrastructure is being used by priority equity residents, or if it's being used by others? I'm not sure how to phrase this question real well, but I'm sure y'all have thought it through. You're very thoughtful about the equity thing. So I'm just wondering if you have any feedback on that.
Yeah, so thanks, Olivia. It's definitely something that we're looking at and aware of from a data perspective. We have been getting DMV registration data for all registered vehicles within the county. And we've recently redone that request to include San Joaquin County because we hadn't had that before. So we should be getting that, I think, by the end of the month. And And then we've also been working to match that against our customer addresses so that we can see kind of what the adoption rate is, not only at an address, but once you actually match it to an account, you can see if that's a care customer. What we have seen is that there's not a lot of overlap between registered vehicles and our multifamily houses, multifamily dwellings, because we can look at that right now just as an overlap in the map. You saw the triangles that Jesse pointed out to, which is our affordable multifamily housing units. When you look at the overlap of the blue dots of registered EVs and the red triangles of multifamily units, you don't see a lot of overlap. So we know we're not meeting that to date. And I think 60% of responses for people who register concern about EV purchases is because of a lack of charging infrastructure. So we know that the lack of charging infrastructure is an impediment. And if you don't own your home, then you don't really have a clear line of visibility to how you charge your vehicle. So I think, from an evaluation perspective, that's certainly something that we plan to evaluate. In addition, with some of our projects, our DC fast charging projects, we've gotten funding for a couple of our initial projects from the California Energy Commission. And part of that is providing lower cost charging to residents of multifamily affordable housing who live nearby, and doing directed outreach and measuring the impacts of the usage of those chargers by those residents of multifamily housing nearby. So thinking about how we can track these things and create correlations, like, are we successful? One measurement of success is, are we actually meeting the 1.5 million EV target by 2025, which actually we just met late last week, which is a great Earth Day celebration, by doing that. And 5 million vehicles is our target by 2030 statewide. So we want to be beating that and meeting that and beating that. And then there's the who is participating, and it's really important to track that as well.
I'll just add on that all of the funding that's coming down the line from the state and federal government for light duty electric vehicle incentives and tax credits is very much directed at income eligible drivers. So that includes the federal tax credits for EVs. Those now have income eligibility requirements connected to them. So we will see more and more opportunity for residents who are low and moderate income to have access to electric vehicles at parity to internal combustion engine vehicles. And what they don't have is access to charging infrastructure, which is the second part of the problem we're trying to solve now that the state and federal government have a lot of funding to bring down the cost of those vehicles for drivers.
That was a really helpful set of responses. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing those metrics as they play out. And again, that was really cool. That was cool.
Thank you, Chair Aldred. Do we have any more questions or comments from participants? Go ahead.
Yeah, can I talk?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. So I want to give a lot of kudos for the programs. I really feel very, very amazed by all the offerings we have. I actually used to work for PG&E for a long time, and one of my assignment was doing the energy efficiency programs and also working with the local government. So I feel a lot of memories came back. And I do have a lot of questions here, so I'll just go one by one for now, and if you get a chance, you can answer those things. So first thing, I just heard a lot of talks from our local residents, and people just realized the electricity or the PG&E bill, gas and electricity, they feel it's so high, like much higher than they normally pay before. So I wonder how this high electricity cost can impact or influence this energy efficiency or different programs. I want somebody to help me to address how we consider that. Second thing is, I want to understand how our EBCE local program, how we work with our local cities and also local organizations, how we work together, and how we work with maybe PG&E or other stakeholders. Third thing is, I want to kind of get an understanding of what's the total budget we have for the different local programs, and where is the budget from? Is that one of the items we charge inside of our bills, like in the electricity cost? How the big picture is?
Thank you. The last question, was it the local programming? How are we allocating the funding? Was that your question?
Yes, how's the funding working out?
Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you for those questions. So on the high electricity prices, it's definitely something that we're aware of. The state is aware. We're certain that as we try to electrify buildings and transportation, high electricity rates are going to could be an impediment to that. And the other thing that we have to think about as the load serving entity is that there are very different prices associated with the time of day that electricity is used. And so one focus is how to kind of create the behaviors with people and how they're using electricity. For example, if you're fueling an electric vehicle in the middle of the day when there's plenty of solar, carbon-free solar at low cost that's available, that should be lower cost than if you're charging in the evening when there's not access to carbon-free renewable energy. So kind of the time of day use is a big factor in how we're doing rate setting and driving benefits to customers. And one of the things we think about with the kind of the grid services work is how do we kind of match customers' needs with the cost of serving those needs, which will vary pretty dramatically. We work a lot with our local cities and organizations. As we discussed, we're working with cities to kind of implement climate action plans that have been developed across transportation, energy efficiency, building, categories, as well as providing Renewable 100, which is our carbon-free renewable product for overall electricity generation. Community grants are another way that we interact with our stakeholders and our communities. We've given out community grants in the past and will continue to do so. We also work, regionally with multiple stakeholders, PG&E, CBOs, as we're looking at how to kind of manifest the best programs to deliver community benefits. So the Blueprint grant is a great example, and working with organizations to develop a strategy for medium and heavy duty acceleration. So there's a lot of counterparties in that: city government, regional government, local CBOs, PG&E. There's a lot of working groups on the types of things that we're focused on. And the budget is allocated on an annual basis through a budgeting process, which we'll be going through shortly. In general, the local development budget has been between $8 and $12 million a year. Last year was a little bit higher, it was about $20 million. There was a budget surplus last year, so we kind of made some commitments to invest in multi-year, longer-term programs with that budget surplus. And so that comes out of the operational revenues that EBC generates selling electricity. We also do, go get a lot of federal funding. So I think we, brought in probably $30 to $50 million of, funding or commitments from, state and regional and federal funding opportunities, which have helped deliver on the programs that we've been running within Alameda County and San Joaquin County.
Thank you.
I want to acknowledge that it's a little bit past 1:45, and I know we were asked to allocate 2 hours, so I'm willing to go a little bit over 2, but not too far out. And I know that some members do have to leave, so if you have to stop before 2 o'clock and you have a question, please raise your hand so we could try to get to your questions first. Is there anyone else? participating remotely that has questions? Okay, anyone in the room? Okay, well, I'll start to my far right.
Thank you. What a fabulous presentation. As a new board member, I really appreciate the time and effort you all have spent on preparing this for us. And I feel like I know a lot more about local programs, so I appreciate that. I had a couple questions. I'm going to sort of crossing them out as I go, but a couple questions. Like many other cities, the city of Fremont works really closely with our public school districts, and to the extent the city utilizes school district facilities for municipal purposes, let's say, for example, using a gym as an emergency shelter, could EBCE look to partner with school districts on resilient critical facilities?
Okay, yeah, this is an excellent question. This is one of the goals of scaling up and out that I talked about on that grid, the Grid Resilience Innovation Program grant. So the idea there is to expand it to those entities that have facilities that share, basically have a shared board with our member entities. So it actually wouldn't just be looking at things like school districts, but could also include other types of facilities like water or wastewater districts as well.
Thank you. And then my second question was with respect to the e-bikes, which I've been excited about ever since I found out what one was. So it's been many years now. It feels like the electric scooters, those stand-up scooters were everywhere, kind of ubiquitous in the years running up to the pandemic, and now I hardly see them anywhere. So I'm wondering if there are lessons learned from that industry that can be applied in our rollout of e-bikes, the e-bike program.
Yeah, can take that. Can y'all hear me? Great. Yeah, so we're, all of our, another group that EBC regularly engages is our Muni Pals, which is a group of our city staff. And we're directly in touch with about the e-bike program. And for example, I'm regularly chatting with OCDOT on, their bike share as well as scooter share programs. And yeah, we will be applying any lessons learned there to what we're doing. There's a big difference though in why we're doing bike lending rather than, bikes that are sort of scattered across our service area, just available to the public through an app or something, is that we want to give people the full experience of lending a bike for a set period of time so they understand how it places and fits into their life and replaces trips they take, rather than, the scooters that are there in the general public are just replacing point A to B trips. And not really moving people towards fully mode shifting. So there are some lessons we can learn from the distribution of those bikes and, how we're getting them out into certain communities, but they're also quite different models.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd say this is not a bike share or scooter share model where somebody's going to have responsibilities, like a personal bike. They need to lock it up, keep it safe, ride it safe. And so it's a very different kind of distribution model than the model where you see bikes and scooters kind of lying around. Those have their values, but we decided we didn't want to cross that bridge. And, for the reasons Brett explained around also just having a longer use period and really integrating that into one's life and figuring out where can I charge it? How do I get it? Does it actually work for me? And take my kids to school or run groceries versus like, I need to get 6 blocks away right now. I'm gonna jump on a scooter, take it, and then leave it where I stop.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Member Roche.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that presentation. Again, as a new board member, this is very helpful, and I have more questions that I'm not even sure how to ask, but I'm going to ask the ones I know how to ask at the moment. I wanted to ask about EV parking at multi-family housing, especially at some of the low-income housing, because there's this battle with the state where we're trying to reduce parking altogether, and especially in some of the high transit corridors and at low-income housing, which is often geared towards transportation corridors, and so they, to get bonuses and stuff, they can have 0 parked, projects now. And so I'm wondering what you think about where you're gonna head on that, like considering municipal lots or, how we balance that, because, the answer to this is no cars, let's get rid of cars. And yet really the only real clear answer to carbon reduction is EV cars. And so sort of wondering what your struggles and how you look at that.
Yeah, so working with your city employees, we know that you all have transit first goals, and that ensuring, transit-oriented design is prioritized, and for all those rides that we can get people out of a single occupancy vehicle, your staff is working towards that. Brett is working towards that to help support some of those city goals. But we all just need to be very realistic and know that there are going to continue to be vehicles on the road, and for the vehicles that are left on the road, we need to transition those to zero emission vehicles. And because there is going to be fewer and fewer parking stalls, we also need to deploy fast charging so that people can get in and out of the charging experience quickly and get back to home or work or shopping or whatever that they need to do. And in that new construction that you're talking about around transit-oriented design for new multifamily housing, and that includes affordable multifamily housing, through the state's building code, there are actually requirements now for those properties to include level 2 charging infrastructure based on how many parking stalls are actually included in that design. So it's a multi kind of tiered approach to how we solve the issue. And it's through building codes and new construction, plus deploying fast charging infrastructure for people who won't live in new construction, plus ensuring that we're getting people out of vehicles and providing them with convenient options to do that. But for the people who still need to continue to use a vehicle to get to work or run their errands or do things that support their family, we want to make it easy for them to adopt a zero emission vehicle.
Right. Sorry.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Member Padula has it first.
Okay, just a second. Do you have any more?
Yeah, I also wanted to ask Brett about the e-biking and about infrastructure for e-bike. So, especially if we're trying to, target multifamily housing and affordable housing, are we looking at all at, e-bike charging in any of those locations? Because some of these bikes, like we said, they're pretty heavy. They're not necessarily going to be bringing them up to their apartments. And then also just safety infrastructure, for e-bikes.
Yeah, good question. We do not currently have a plan for e-bike charging. E-bikes, while they're 50 to 70 pounds, you can take the batteries off the back and bring them up into your home for charging. One thing we are doing, and you might have seen this, these cases pop up in New York, there are cheap e-bikes out there. Some people call them, e-waste, given how poorly they're built and maintained. Our program will require that the batteries are what's called UL certified. And so these are tested and insured batteries, so that when people do bring them into their homes, including multifamily homes, where they'll probably have to take the batteries off and bring them into their homes, that they're going to have a safe charge while they do that. But yeah, at least in the launch, we are not focusing on adding any e-bike charging infrastructure. One thing we are talking to community partners about, municipalities and BART, is around adding more safe parking. That's in the bike community. That's much more of a priority than mobile e-bike stations.
All right, thank you. And then my last question was just about the solar program. I was wondering, with people that had solar before that are now incorporated in the service area, are you, and that were not Sunrun customers, and it's partly a personal question, are you incorporating them to be part of this virtual grid?
To be, yes, yeah. So for the resilient home program, yeah. So
as long as there's solar charging company, it's going back into, okay.
Well, so right now, only Sunrun customers can participate in the virtual power plant.
Okay.
I think it's something that we've kind of sort of thought about as a next stage for the program. Is we have 40 to 45,000 existing solar PV systems, and some percentage of them have batteries and a good percentage of solar systems and that solar and storage systems are not installed by Sunrun. So is there a BYO battery program, where we could aggregate those up? Resilient Home was really a proof of concept. So we kind of needed to select a counterparty who could manage that virtual power plant to the specification that we required. And there wasn't really that much sophistication in the market. There are other parties, Tesla is a sophisticated counterparty, but we kind of did this as a proof of concept and then are also thinking about what are the ways that we can expand it.
But if you are currently a Sunrun customer and you come into EBC service, you can sign up for Resilient.
Yeah, and which I'm not right. Yeah, Tesla.
And if you have a new system going in, that solar system, then you could go through Sunrun. But to JP's point, if neither of those are true, you have to look into a new construct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll recognize a member from Tracy.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you to the staff for this opportunity to learn some more about what EBC does and what we could do better, how our cities and municipalities could support. Regarding the municipal fleet electrification, it was noted that the city of Tracy is working this plan into our council budget request. I look forward to supporting that in the coming weeks as we go through our budget process. Regarding the Resilient Critical Municipal Facilities Phase 2, the solar and battery energy storage for public services, I want to acknowledge the work that Tracy Unified Schools is doing on this front with a similar private sector partner and approach. But to follow up on that idea, if it's appropriate, may I please have resolution language that I could present to council and staff for consideration so we can get Tracy participating in a timely manner as the opportunity presents itself.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Member Bowders?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll save a few of my questions for offline because I was really interested in what Allison was saying. You're talking about technologically agnostic building optimization. And
Wi-Fi is very spotty.
Sorry. Did you have another question? Okay.
And I was really curious.
I just wanted to confirm. I'm sorry for my bad connection. My Wi-Fi is really spotty. I'm sorry about that for the interruption.
No, that's okay. Thank you for your comments and your questions. Sorry.
No problem. So I'm just I'll ask offline, but just wanted to learn more about what some of the no to low cost building efficiency strategies. You said that at a high level, but I was curious what examples that are. So I'll be looking to learn a little bit more about that. And then also in some of the early presentation Jessica had, we talked about the budget for the DAC and LICs, 50% of it being priority areas, but I'd just be curious. It's always great to hear 50% of the money goes to these communities, but I always kind of curious what percent of our service area is in those communities, right? So 50% of who are we actually serving, right? So just making sure that the metric is actually equitable. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. And then the questions I did want to ask for right now, one was just around the healthy home. The low cost financing, is that low cost as opposed to no cost financing because of Block Power? Does Block Power basically make its money providing the service through the financing? Is that why we have low cost financing? Because just imagine a lot of very low income homeowners are, as it was discussed, are very hard to get into a program. I think of PACE. There's also a history of some programs opportunizing low income and non-English speaking households and putting them into agreements that they can't make and then losing their homes. So there is a lot of reticence in those types of communities. So I'm just curious about, is no cost financing an option? Is that something we've talked about, or is that prohibitive through this program the way it's set up? I don't know who would answer that.
Yeah, we can answer. I was just going to answer them in order.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for the Healthy Homes program, we provided that the 5.5% loan to Block Power, and they are making money on the installation, and then there's the financing. Our first goal here was like, can we create something that's scalable? Like if we could do this and it was replicable and providing value, then that would be something that we could invest considerable amount of more money in to provide that financing option to backstop that. It is a 15 to 20 year kind of lease. It's similar to a solar power purchase agreement where there's no upfront cost for the customer, but then they pay ongoing to receive that benefit and that upgrade to their home, and recognize the challenges that PACE and some other financing programs have brought to the market. So that's something we're very well aware of. I think, the goal here was to test something out and see if we could get it to work. If we can't hit this goal, then we're gonna have to rethink our approach, and thinking about kind of the cost of financing and who we are providing that financing to would be one thing that we evaluate. We're not a commercial bank, so us providing actual loans to customers becomes a little bit of a challenge. So that's why we've provided our financing to commercial intermediaries. We can do, I think, 5 of those every 12 months. So we have before we have to go through a bunch of certifications to become a lending institution. So there's some challenges to us kind of providing a lot of small loans, which is why we've taken this route so far. But we're taking this as a learning opportunity. Can we get this done? And if so, what are the ways that we could do it that we could really double down on once we achieve success?
Okay, my follow-up question on that, you said 30, the goal is to get 30 in sales by July. How many do we have so far?
So there's 2 that we have signed ESAs on, an energy service agreement. There's another 6 to 8 that we have verbals, or that Block Power has verbals on. So this slow ramp rate has been something that we put them on notice for. And so if we can't get to 30 by July, then we're gonna have to rethink our approach here. So because it has been so slow.
Thank you. Then my last couple of questions are about the e-bike program, which Brett, you and I are going to become very good friends.
Did you bike here?
I did.
Thank you.
I did, of course. Yeah.
You're an in-house expert.
I did bike here, although I am not currently an owner of an e-bike. I have 4 bicycles, but none of them are electric. That will change this year. But I was curious, you talked about certain types of bicycles that would not be eligible. You mentioned mountain bikes, for example. Are cargo bikes going to be eligible?
Yeah, good question. So we will be having 2 different incentive levels as well as an adder. So someone else might be unmuted. Okay.
You're a little choppy, Brett. It's
I think it's
difficult.
because the person might be not muted. Yeah. Okay.
Let me turn off my video and see if that helps. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll go for that. So we'll have 2 different incentive levels. One is going to be for market rate customers, which will be much lower than the incentive for care customers. And then we'll have an adder for either customer group. And that will include cargo bikes, which you might see those bikes as buckets on the front or sort of tenders on the back. And we'll also be having an adder for adaptive bikes. So people with physical mobility issues, there are bikes that can be modified for people that use crutches or wheelchairs for more long distance transportation for those populations.
That's excellent. And then just a couple of brief follow-up questions. One is on the lending program. Is it contemplated that the lending program will actually also offer people the opportunity to lend and use a cargo bike?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, great. And then my last is more of a comment, which is just that I would love to arrange to have one of the physical lending locations in our city. 29% of my community doesn't commute by a car. And we're doing a lot of work around trying to do this. And I have some ideas about how we could very significantly incentivize people to try these things. So happy to talk to you more offline.
Yeah, happy to chat offline. We should set up a meeting.
Sure. Thank you.
Do we have any more? Thank you so much for your feedback and comments. Do we have anyone else? Okay, so I just want to acknowledge, I really like to hear with regards to the community investment grants that you're going to be doing this community feedback session. I think that's been asked for, so thank you for being receptive to that. And in regard to the resilient critical municipal facilities phase 2, is there still opportunity for cities to join, or do they have to look at phase 3 or thereafter?
It's currently phase 3. Yeah.
Okay. And you did mention that every city has been outreached to.
Yeah, and in fact, cities who have already participated, if they have additional facilities, can participate again. So it's an ongoing rolling program.
Okay, wonderful. And then I don't expect a response right now, but just want to know how we can increase outreach efforts with respect to the tax credits for low and moderate income individuals to purchase an EV vehicle. And then are we doing like a survey? I don't know the used car lot. Are these cars even available? What is the cost? I just think we need to have more information around that so we can ensure that we're being equitable in our approach and rolling this out. But thank you again to staff. This was very impressive. And anyone that criticizes our work, we will defer to this presentation and PowerPoint. So thank you for the great work. And we'll now move on to item number 5. This is board member and staff announcements, including requests for future agenda items. Do we have any requests? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned at 2:07. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.